Hi everybody, welcome back to my channel. I'm Holly from Flow Movement Therapy, and we are going to talk today about a thing that's going on in your bodies that you really want to start working on more, because I see this frequently in folks out there. It's that your pelvis and your hip are not working independently. They tend to be locked together for one reason or another. And it's really important that we are able to move them independently, because that will unlock all of these different patterns that you're probably struggling to be able to do. And being able to unlock those two things in your brain allows you to up-level all of these things and get out of those aches and pains that are frustrating you. So we're going to talk today about why you want to get an independence between your pelvis and your hip. I'm going to give you a bunch of drills to do that, and then we're going to see how you do with that. So first off, we're going to talk about why your pelvis and your hip should move independently. So if I use my forearm here as my pelvis and my other arm as my hip, so I've got my femur in my hip socket, we want to be able to move these structures independently. So if they're stuck together and moving as one unit, then we're missing all of the things above and below that might want to move well, or those bits are moving in ways that are causing you trouble in your body. So we want to be able to move our pelvis. You want to be able to move your pelvis forward and back on that hip socket. You also want to be able to move your hip socket forward and back independently. So they need to be able to move together and independently, because they move at different speeds and in different directions, and we want to be able to do all the things they're supposed to do. We also want to be able to bring your hip socket in and out independent of your pelvis. We want to be able to drop and rise that the pelvis independent of your hip, as well as being able to shift your pelvis over and see what's happening in your hip socket instead of it being dragged along like that. And then we want to be able to rotate in your hip socket. We want to be able to rotate your pelvis on top of that. Sometimes you will need to rotate your hip socket internally or externally at different speeds than your pelvis is rotating. Sometimes they're rotating in the same direction but at different speeds. They need to be able to do all of those things independently. If they're not doing that, like I said, things above and below are not going to be happy. So I've got a bunch of exercises coming up next that are going to help you differentiate. So you're going to warm up, you're going to differentiate your pelvis and your hip to be able to put you back into a configuration where you can move them independently. So I hope those help. Let's get on with the exercises. So we're going to sit on one side of your glutes, whichever one you like, and we're going to put our knees at 90 degrees. So 90 degrees at the front knee, 90 degrees at the back knee, and this is going to be our setup. So we're going to have you propping up your hands behind you. We're going to sit nice and tall with your torso, and this is like windshield wipers, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to roll across to sitting on the other glute and rolling all the way around to the other side. But I want to keep that 90-90 with my feet as I go. So trying to keep your feet where they are, not sliding around, and keeping them where they are and getting that nice mobility in your hips as you go back and forth. You want to always make sure that you're back to this 90-90 configuration when you're done. So we want to stand with our feet not too close to the wall and not too far away from the wall. And we want to have our pelvis, our rib cage, and if it's comfortable, the back of your head against the wall. And so we want to be at the right distance, that we're not trying to stand up really hard. We're not using our hamstrings to hold us up. We just feel like we can use the wall as a prompt to keep us straight up and down with gravity. And now we're going to work on tilting our pelvis. So first off, we're going to do tilting the pelvis forward. So we're going to let go of our abdomen, permission to completely let go of your abdomen. And without losing contact with the wall at the back of your pelvis, we're going to tilt the pelvis so that you're arching your lower back and tilting the pelvis forward. So letting your abdomen relax and gravity take it forward, and you're going to have the weight of your abdomen coming forward to tilt your pelvis. Now the flip side of that will be tilting the pelvis under. So we want to think of, with the tilting the pelvis under, you're feeling that your tail is tucking underneath between your legs. So we want to tilt our pelvis under as we feel all of the bones in the back of your vertebrae, they're all going to go in towards the wall. So they're all going to open at the back in order to move towards the wall. If you can't feel that, that's okay. We want to think about your abdomen traveling backwards in space horizontally. So it's going backwards in space, and it's going to, as the abdomen goes back, it will push your lower back, your spine, towards the wall. So putting those two together, tilting your pelvis forward and then smoothly transitioning to tilting your pelvis back. We are going to start off today with the tilting side to side of your pelvis. So again, being up against the wall, we want our pelvis to tilt side to side, but we want to think about the plumb line running from your nose all the way down between your feet. So we're going to be moving around that axis right down the center. So we want to think about your pelvis is going to be tilting side to side around your belly button as the sort of the steering wheel there. And we're going to do that by bending one knee at a time. So I'm going to bend my knee on this side, that's my left side. And when I do that, when I bend that knee, my pelvis is going to drop on that side. I don't want to let my body go along. I want to keep that plumb line there. And the rotation, the dropping of my pelvis will happen around my belly button. So we want to see if we can bend the knee and let your pelvis drop on that side, but not shifting your weight over. You're going to keep your the points on the wall exactly where they are, and that side is going to go down. And then you want to practice on the other side. Let the knee on this side drop down and allow your pelvis to tilt down to that side, rotating around the steering wheel around your belly button. The next exercise we're going to do is learning how to shift your pelvis side to side. Here we're going to be up against the wall again, and here we're going to focus on the pelvis, so what the pelvis is doing against the wall, shifting side to side. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to keep my knees straight, not locked, but just keep them still. And I'm wanting to keep my chest and my head against the wall exactly where it is. The pelvis is going to be doing the movements here. So it's going to look like this. We're going to shift our pelvis side to side, keeping your knees just still, so not bending or straightening them, just keeping them as they are. And we're just going to shift side to side. We want to make sure that we're not disturbing that chest against the wall, so we're not letting it drift along the wall with us. This is about your pelvis and your lower back doing the work, rather than our whole body tilting side to side. A few things that you want to notice is whether you're rotating and coming away from the wall, or whether you're drawing a nice horizontal line with your bum against the wall. The other one can be letting your pelvic floor relax. But if you can let your pelvic floor relax, that allows some stretch in the muscles that are deep inside your hip sockets, allowing to shift. Continuing on with our pelvis and hip socket theme, we are going to work on what's happening when your leg is the back leg. We want to focus on your hip socket and your pelvis and having them rotating independently. So rotating at different rates, but definitely rotating so that there's a differentiation between those two structures. The back leg pushing you forward, getting your weight on top of the front leg. So we're going to be working on that. I'm going to be focusing on your hip socket and your pelvis. So we're going to be thinking first about your hip socket. So as you bring your weight forward on top of your front leg, let's think about taking your femur and rotating it to face away from you. So just a couple of repetitions of that. We're going to think about bringing your femur from facing forward to facing away from you. The other one is we want our pelvis to rotate as well. So we want our pelvis, if it's facing straight forward, if I have headlights, as I go forward, my pelvis is going to rotate towards the corner. And I want to differentiate the rotation of my hip socket and the movement of my pelvis. So I want to be able to do both of those. So my pelvis is going to rotate, and I'm going to allow my hip socket to also rotate. So they're not stuck going as one lump. We're allowing the hip socket to rotate we're also allowing our pelvis to rotate. So I'm going to let my pelvis start the rotation, and then let my hip socket do its rotation just a smidge afterwards. I hope those exercises were helpful for you. We want to be able to slowly go into those things, because as things haven't moved in a long time, things are going to be a bit cranky. So go as slow as you need to and put those back into your body, and then start reaping the rewards of being able to move your pelvis and your hip independently. Thanks for watching all the way to the end. That means you guys like this video. So if that's true, hit the like button so that I know to make more of it in the future. And if you want to never miss out on what I put up on my channel, hit the subscribe button and I'll keep making content for you.